This entrepreneur built a $1 million business in the most boring and predictable way.
I never built a company myself with external funding, so everything I've built was bootstrapped. The venture case is either 100 million or it's out, it's nothing. But I don't want the 100 million or nothing approach.
He tells us exactly how he got there.
The first customers, that is a great question, and a lot of people struggle with this. So back then I had no audience.
And he tells us how anyone can take their business to the next level.
1 million ARR is a fantastic milestone, but I'm already since a few months I'm looking at how can I build a business that goes into 10 million, into 10 million revenue.
We want to have peer-to-peer conversations. The question is how to win.
I would also suggest we just switch to English immediately so that we get used to it.
Sure.
Basically, I took a look at your whole Vita. I've also been following you for some while, so there's enough things to talk about. Also, what's nice is that you're very vocal yourself, right? So it's this is not a new situation for you. Nevertheless, I want to point out, of course, if at any point we say something stupid or you say, let me say that again or whatever, later on you tell me I don't want this in the recording because whatever, then of course that's all fine, right? You're in control.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. Fantastic. Let me close the door real quick. All right.
And so basically, maybe one question I had, is my sound clear? Yeah, okay, perfect.
Yes, perfect.
And then essentially I want to go through a couple of the things that you sent me. Of course, first we're going to provide a little bit of context about you, what you did. Then you said you never applied in a normal way and always had a shit CV. So I want to dig into that. Obviously, then managed to get into Stripe, which is a cool story. You had this deal recently where you sold your company for 440,000 euro. We're going to dig into that. I want to hear a couple of your side hustle ideas. Maybe you have some ideas for people listening. And I know people like you, people like me also, we always have thousands of ideas, but then it's about executing them and having the time to double down on them. And then obviously we're going to dig into bootstrapping to 1 million ARR. I want to hear a little bit more about, how do we say it in English, parquet or parquet?
Yeah, that's fine. Parquet, that's good.
And
it's a reference to
that's what I thought. So nobody's gonna get it in English, but it's but that's fine.
That's okay. That's okay.
And that's it. And then I'm sure we're gonna take a lot of turns left and right.
Sounds great.
Let me just switch my view here, and then get started. So Sumit, welcome. It's great to have you on, man.
Thanks, Kevin. Nice to meet you, and pleasure to be here.
So let's get right
Thanks
into
for
it.
the
You're
invitation.
like a bit like the German Peter Levels, but with more mass appeal, I would say. Okay, so those who are not aware of this guy, Peter Levels, is this kind of indie hacker, digital nomad. He has all these different website projects and he's generating a lot of revenue and cash flow with those. He's very transparent about that. And so I think there's a couple of interesting parallels. You're also super transparent. You like to talk about money, how much you earn, about your failures, successes. You both love to code. But I think what's interesting about you is you're also into this, side hustle, building stuff, but you started with it next to the job. And that's what many people want to do, right? They don't want to go all in like this Peter Levels guy, just living this crazy digital nomad life, building tens of projects. Most people would like would be very content just building that first side project that makes them 5K or so per month, and then they can scale up from that. Also, many people prefer this more normal lifestyle. I think you have a family, you're not like a perpetual nomad. So your Peter levels with more mass appeal. What do you say to that?
Well, I share my content in English, so I'm not sure about the mass appeal part, but I definitely don't live the nomad lifestyle. So maybe you hear my daughter screaming in the background, so you will know what that is about. Yes, I live in Hamburg. I have a family. I'm into building side projects. I did that next to my main job for a couple of years. I'm now building full-time on my own thing, and I learned the lesson to focus mainly on one thing. But still, side projects are something that I encourage, that I still do, that I encourage with my employees now. You can learn a lot, you can build something else, you will have a little bit more freedom, diversify your income a little bit, and where you learn. So I think it's a good thing for everyone to do, especially if you are unhappy in the place where you're currently at. A side project might be a way out, or at least give you a lot of inspiration.
And let's give some context maybe, because so you started out in your career, you never really had like a degree or something. You started out, I think, in an agency. You were doing web development, and you jumped around a little bit in the early stages of your career, but you pretty early on started building stuff on the side. Now, you sold one of these projects for, if you calculated, around $500,000 US. Was a nice deal for you. Then you somehow managed to get into Stripe, which is, for context, for people who are more from a finance background, that's like the Goldman Sachs of the tech industry. It's very hard to get in there. They do a lot of things right. They have a lot of appeal for, young people trying to get in there. So you got in there without a degree, without all of these typical things. And now you're scaling a startup, which we're going to talk about that later, but you're approaching, or you already crossed 1 million ARR, built it in a super lean way. And so we're going to talk about that, but that's like a very broad resume.
Yeah, I mean, by now it is true. If you summarize it like that, it definitely sounds like a lot, but to me it's something that I did, and it just compounded over time. But yeah, I did a lot of things simultaneously in the past, especially the full-time job at Stripe and building Paket, which is now my main business currently. That was a very tough time in these 2 years when I did this side by side, while Paket was scaling up, still having the full-time job. But at some point I needed to make the switch. But we can talk about all of this. I'm happy to share what I learned in that time. And it's fun looking back now. But it took a lot of effort, of course, and many years of nights and hustle.
And so I remember that you said that one time where you said that, we're going to talk about side hustles in a minute, but you said there's actually one thing much better than starting a side hustle for some people, and that's just simply good salary negotiation. And I also remember you calculate, you keep track of all of this stuff. You have it in some spreadsheet. You said you calculated that over the past almost 10 years or so, you had a 30% annual salary increase, which is massive.
That's right.
I would say, normally it would be more around 10% or something like that. So 30% is a very solid yearly salary increase to have. How to do that, and what are some tips around that?
Yeah, so it all depends from a side hustle perspective. It depends on what you want to do. A lot of people do this to learn, which is fine. Then go ahead and do it. Other people want to do it for money. They think about, I want to have 500 euros more per month. I live in Germany, and here it's euros, so I apologize for this. But anyways, even if it's $500 per month, you think about this and think, okay, I would like to invest with that, or I would like to have treat myself with something. So $500 per month more would be nice. I will start a side hustle. That is not a big enough reason, in my opinion, to do that. The work is is too much. If you start really a business for 500 euros, you should aim higher. You should have 5,000 or 25,000 as a goal to justify what it means to start a business on the side. It's just a lot of work. For 500, you're much better off either getting like a small job in a coffee shop on a weekend or simply work on your career and get that salary increase. That, of course, I'm totally aware that not everyone has the opportunity. It depends on the job and the industry and everything, but I'm in the tech world. I'm a programmer, so there the salaries go from like 30,000 a year, let's say, which is the bottom part in Germany at least, up to the US salaries of 200, 300, 400K. I know in the US, if you are like a level 7 person at Google or something, you can even go as high as 800K, things like that. In AI, even bigger. These are completely unrealistic in Germany and most parts of the world, I'd say. But still, you can multiply your salary quite a bit, and earning 70K in Germany is a very nice salary, but you are able to double that as a programmer, at least in the tech space. But you have to be deliberate about it. So in the beginning of my career, when I started at like huge corporation or doesn't matter where, you look at your salary and you just go with the flow. You are like a sailor without a compass. You just go where it happens with your career. But at some point I was like, okay, I hate how this is going out. I hate who gets promoted and why, and I disagree with this, and I disagree with how the company runs. And at some point I was like, okay, I need to stop complaining. I need to act on it. I need to understand how to climb the ladder, and I need to understand how to change the company from above. So it doesn't matter, like complaining doesn't change anything. I need to get in there and change it myself. So that means a manager position or whatever it is, right? So I was really diligent and was thinking about and reading about how do you get promoted, like even the subtle things, like how does your boss decide who to promote and why? And I went really into, let's say, career development with this and personal development, and it worked out great. When there was no position to be promoted into, I worked on that the company creates a new position, and I positioned myself to be the perfect candidate to be in that. Like you got to learn how to find out what is the goal of your boss, like of your manager. That's the only thing that is important. If you are able to bring him closer or her to his goals, then you will be the key man that gets promoted. It doesn't, like, the product itself doesn't matter. If it's a large company and your boss wants to get promoted, help him to get promoted and look good, and you will get promoted right with him. Like things like this. So I did a lot of that. It worked great, but obviously there were years where I had salary decreases. That also happens every now and then. So for example, when I changed jobs, I accepted a decrease, but there was a lot more potential there when I grew in a new company. So there were years where I had like 7% decrease in salary, and there were years where I had like an 80% increase. So all in all, over the entirety of my career, I was able to go from 40,000 euros per year, which was my starting salary back in 2009, something like this, to around 300K. But that 300K includes stock options and things like that. So total compensation. It was not just a cash compensation. And obviously I'm very grateful for that. I feel lucky, but I also know that I put a lot of work into learning how to negotiate, learning how to climb the ladder, understand how I make myself valuable for the company, what to look at, how to be a team player there, and just being, a productive member of that team and bringing the company forward. And there are a lot of low-hanging fruits for everyone, I think, to benefit from that in their own organization.
That's a good keyword. What are some low-hanging fruits? I mean, one thing that I understood now is you need to be aware of your boss's goals, right? Like, what does he or she want to achieve?
Yes.
you help them achieve that, you're fine probably. What are some other low-hanging fruits people listening to this can get started with in the next weeks?
Yeah, so I want to elaborate one more thing on the goals part, because it's easy to say, but a lot of people think about, okay, how do I approach this even? And how I liked to approach this is in the next one-on-one with my manager, I go in and ask, okay, what are your goals for this year? What are your goals for your department or whatever it is, and or your team? You ask a lot of questions. You try to understand this. Then you try, either you know it already, or afterwards you try to understand how can you help him. And then you make a plan.
I want
and
to
you
say
go,
one thing.
You go there and say, look,
just
go
this
ahead.
process of asking questions probably positions you in a completely different league from all your other competition, right? Because me as a boss, if someone asks me, Kevin, what do you want to achieve, right? And someone actually takes interest in me asking me, it's like on a date, right? If you ask the questions, you're in a better position.
Yeah.
So just this process alone is such a nice piece of advice, but sorry for interrupting.
Yeah. No, that's completely right. By taking an interest in this kind of stuff, you're already a go-to person for the boss if they want to have their problem solved. So what you want to do is you want to ask their goals and the problems that they have. Like what stuff do they want to have taken away from them, and simply not bothered with it. And then you make a plan of the stuff where you know you can achieve for them, or you can help them with, or a problem you can take away from them, something like this. And then you go there and say, look, I want to improve, I want to learn, and I want to, let's say, grow here at the company. This is my plan. I want to help you achieve this, this, and this. And if I do that, I would like to talk about my salary next year. So is that okay? And of course he says yes. Like why wouldn't he? You know, it's next year, and you are there putting in the work now. You don't demand anything. You're just there. I will solve this problem for you. And then you start doing it, and you start to report it every week or every 2 weeks. You send an email. This is how it's going currently. This is the plan for next week, and bam, bam, bam. You have it. You have a paper trail of what you did, of what you achieved, and everything. And ideally, you achieve these goals. You don't bother him with it. You don't bring your problems to him. You solve it all by yourself. You're proactive. Ideally, you just ask him, hey, look, we have a road here. We can go both directions. Which one do you want? He says A or B. You go and solve it. You're completely, ideally independent. And the year after, like the next year, when you have that conversation, you go in and say, look, I achieved this and this and this and that. Let's talk about my role here. Let's talk about how we can continue. I would love to do the same next year, tackle this, this, and this. I have these ideas, but I would like to grow as well. Whatever family comes in, I would like to talk about my salary as well. He is more than happy to keep you, to give you a raise, whatever it is. And it doesn't matter if the company usually increases salaries by 2% or 3%. If you can keep someone like this, it's worth 10%, it's worth 20%. Like, it doesn't matter. So it's so much more money to get a new person in, and much more likely they are not, it's very likely that they are not as motivated as you are in this scenario. So I think with this kind of approach, it will become a dream for every manager, and they would do anything to keep you. And it doesn't mean paying 100% over market rate. It just means you grow and you are able to increase your salary, and you put in the work first. You don't go in there and say, I will work hard if I'm paid good. You go in and say, I work hard and I will deserve my raise next year. Things like that, including paper trail and everything. I think this works everywhere, and most people don't do it. This is a low-hanging fruit, definitely. Another one is negotiation. Almost no one negotiates, as far as I know. There are a few books that I think brought me into this, and articles. I can send them to you over if you want to link them in the show notes or something. But in general, it's understanding a few basic things. First of all, when someone uses negotiating tactics against you, that is already a big thing to know, or if you know it. But more importantly, a few basic things like you don't commit in your first talk. When you talk with someone and they offer you something, you don't commit. You say, thank you, nice, I will think about it. You always have someone else that you want to talk with, even if they are not real. You want to talk to your partner, to your dad, doesn't matter. the person in front of you needs to convince someone else, not you. That is the important piece that you want to convey. You always have a best alternative to a negotiated agreement. BATNA is the term. So you have an alternative. That means changing companies. That means going back to school. That means doing your own thing. Whatever it is, the better it is, the more confident you are in a negotiation. And that means also, if you are looking for a job right now, you don't get one company to give you an offer. You get 10. And then you have the best BATNA and the best negotiating time with all of these companies, because you can then do things like, look, I would love to work for your company. I truly do, but this company does 50% more on salary. Can you meet me somewhere there? And you know, so we can come to an agreement, and I would love to join your team. You do things like this. It works fantastic. And why wouldn't it? They invested so much in the interview process, in the recruiting part. They think you are the right fit, the right candidate. 10,000 per year more, it doesn't matter for this company. It doesn't matter at all. So it's definitely an underlooked thing. And I mean, for myself, it was, let's put it this way. The return on invest of reading 2 books was insane. It was absolutely insane. And I would recommend everyone to do it, because almost no one is doing it. And I believe the people who are watching here or listening to this, they are a little bit more motivated than the usual people in corporations.
Yeah, for sure. There's only crazy megalomaniacs listening. Essentially, what I also remember is you said you never once applied to a company in a normal way. Yet, in your career, you managed to get into a lot of great companies, the best of which probably is Stripe, which is like the McKinsey or Goldman Sachs of the tech industry. It's this, you know, sexy, not startup anymore. It was a startup at some point, but now it's this massive tech company that is powering the whole, financial infrastructure of a lot of companies. You managed to get in there. You said you never applied in a normal way. So I'm curious, how do you get into companies?
So maybe a small anecdote from my youth, where I had this exact same problem. My CV always sucked. I had bad grades. Almost like I think in English it's high school, Abitur in German. So I did basically the school part with not a good grade. So whenever I applied, I competed basically with people that are better on paper. It was just like, so I was never picked when I applied regularly. In Germany, that means you have a CV, you fill out a motivational form, and your grades and things like that, and you send them like paper, and then they decide. Terrible for myself. It's absolutely terrible. So back when I was, 14 or something, I wanted a job during a summer break to earn a few bucks. And even there, like, even if it's in the supermarket, you want to work like a small job, they have applicants like this, because they paid back then, it was like 10 euros an hour, and which was really good. Everyone wanted this, so I had no chance. But I needed to think a little bit differently. So instead, I took my application. I didn't send it in. I put it in my pocket. I went to the store. I went to the cashier and asked them, who's the manager? Where is the manager? I know you have an open position for this and that. I would like to talk to him about it. They called him, and I went there. Firm handshake, looked him in the eye. I said, my name is Sumit Kumar. I would love to work for this position you have open. I can start right now or tomorrow. I'm happy to work for you 2 days, 4 days for free. So you see how I work, that I add value. If it works for you, then let's talk about the employment or the summer break job, whatever it is. And then he said, well, yeah, send an application. I have it right here for you. And I gave it to him. He goes back to his office. Who is on top of that application pile? Suddenly it's me. And I'm the only person he met. And I was confident, and I was willing to put in the work first. I took the risk to me, because if he would like look at the paper, he would take all the risk if he takes the the bad person or the worst person of that pile of paper. You have someone with A grades and someone who is like me. If he takes me, he takes the risk for it. But if I go there and say, look, I'm willing to work here for free for 2 days, so you see that I can deliver, I take all of the risk for him. I got every job this way. It almost didn't matter, at least summer grade style. And with larger companies now, something like Stripe or Porsche or whatever, all these companies where when you apply, you need to have a bachelor, you need to have a master's degree. I don't have that. The only way for me to get into these companies is show what I can do outside of that, before that. Like I can't apply and be taken. They have to ask me. So that means I have to make myself visible to them in a field that is important to them. That means doing open source, doing speaking gigs, meetups, organizing meetups, just being visible in the industry, showing expertise, starting a blog, a YouTube channel about tech, whatever it is. If I would like to go into a company like Stripe today, for example, as someone who is bad on paper, I would start doing open source work. I would start doing educational stuff for Stripe. I would help people implement Stripe, help articles, tutorials on YouTube, things like this, contribute to their open source repositories. So when someone at Stripe looks at, hey, we need a new developer, they immediately think of you because you are contributing there. The developers know you. And of course, I know at Stripe, at least, it's not a guarantee to get in. You still have to go through their interview process, which is very tough. But still, you have a lot of clout already built. And with this kind of approach, it takes longer, and you do the work before. You have to get your hands dirty in the beginning. But on the other hand, people come and ask you, hey, look, we have this job opening. We think it fits perfectly on you. Would you be willing to, go through our interview process? Let's see if this works. And then you go through and you have a lot of goodwill from the people that you're meeting there. And whether you know it or not, you are a fit for this position because you know the company already, you know the products, you contribute to the code. They see that you can be a valuable member of the team. You showed it already, basically. Now it's just a formality to go through the interview process. This is the position that I try to get myself into to be able to join a company. And it means doing the work first. Not everyone is willing to do this. I know this, but I had no other chance. Otherwise, there was no way I would have gotten into these companies without that.
What's the salary once you get into Stripe?
There are a lot of public salaries. I think I don't know it's a few years ago where I joined, but let's put it this way: I was able to work remotely from Germany, and they pay better than any German company does. So for tech people, so for me it was definitely 6 figures. But all of these, like if you are able to work remotely for Microsoft or Google or all these tech giant SaaS companies, they all pay very well globally, which is really nice. So if you want to go into that league, let's say, of salaries without having to manage people, I think almost no German company would pay that. You have to go into US tech territory.
Okay. I posted a couple of weeks ago on LinkedIn that we sold one of our YouTube channels for almost $100,000. And actually this post was inspired by you, because I was scrolling through my LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago. Then I saw this familiar face pop up on my feed, but I was not following on LinkedIn. I wasn't following you on LinkedIn, I think. And I saw, okay, this dude made like $500,000 with like a sale of some side project or whatever, right? I wasn't aware of it. The initial reaction is, okay, like $500,000 is like this strange sum. You either, like usually when you read something online, someone sold something, it's these, it's millions or whatever. So initially I was like strange. That must have been, something smaller, but nevertheless it's $500,000 in your pocket, right? So talk a little bit about what you built there, and I'm super interested in the whole process, like price, valuation, deal structure, and so on. Let's get a bit nitty-gritty there.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So the project was called Geoman, or Geoman, but yeah, Geoman. It's a geospatial data software, basically. It started out as an open source project, as I mentioned, 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago. I started this in 2013 out of personal need in my spare time. And I maintained it for 8 years or something, just on the side for free, not for profit or anything. And at some point, there were a lot of companies using it. There were a lot of people using it, and a lot of feature requests and bug reports and things like that. So a lot of work I had to put in. And I was like, okay, I need to make this financially sustainable somehow. So I thought about how to make a business out of it. And at the end of the day, I made a pro version and started to sell that. Yearly license, pretty simple. And I put in features that I know are relevant for large companies. Who needs geospatial software? Everyone. Every one of the large companies. Drone companies, NASA, governments, sales companies, mobility companies like car sharing, scooter companies, autonomous driving companies. They all need geospatial data. It's surprising how many companies need these kind of things. Logistical companies, container ships, all of these, planes, airlines. The market is huge. So I built the software, I put in pro features. I got the first customers. They were asking the price and asking for more features and etc. And I was able to sell a few, but it was all a side project. I was at Stripe, then I started Parquet, things like that. So I had an hour a month or maybe 4 hours a month or something, very small. I started to hire a developer, for freelance developer who helped develop all of that. And I basically did the inbound sales part. I wasn't very active on it. But it still managed to grow it to 60K ARR. So it's not big, but 5K per month for almost no work because the software was almost done. And we only developed it further when someone paid for it. So that meant I had basically an asset I was able to sell repeatedly, right? Like writing a book or a music album or a software. So it was a finished software. It was not SaaS. It was really they pay a license and I sent the code to them.
But you pay this developer to develop it, or because you to continue
to continue develop it, yes. But only if a customer paid for it. So there was a little bit of maintenance work, but it was still we had an agreement of him. He gets 10% of the revenue, basically. So it was when we grow, his salary grows as well. He maintained the library and things like that. And for me, it was fantastic because obviously I put in a lot of the work in the previous 8 years. And now I basically had a passive income almost like passive income. Just a little bit coordination here and there and the occasional sales calls. And the customers were governments, huge enterprises, things like this. But I didn't do active outreach or active selling or anything like that. I thought about, okay, Parquet gets bigger. I was quitting Stripe. I went full into Parquet. I had 10 employees, 12 employees. I was thinking about just getting this a little bit of headspace back per month and sell this. It's nice revenue, but if anyone gives me 6, 7, 8 years worth of revenue, of today's revenue, I would sell, because then I have a nice runway. My salary is covered. I'm safe. I can do a little bit more risks inside Parquet, and I feel safer myself. And I have a family, daughter, everything. So it just felt safer. I wasn't forced to sell, but I thought, let's have some conversations. So I put it on the platform acquire.com, or microacquire was the previous name. I put it there. I had a few conversations. They all they wanted to pay. I asked 300K back then because the platform wouldn't let me put in a higher multiple. They said only 3x or 4x, something like this. Even though it was like 95% profit. There was zero costs. Like the costs were just 10% to the developer and $60 hosting or something like this. So almost no cost. And it grew from itself, and the product was finished. So it had a lot of potential to tap into if someone takes it over. So I wasn't willing to give it away for 300K, but the platform only let me put it in. So I put it in. Then I had a few conversations, didn't lead to anything. I didn't understood how to delete it from the platform, so I just left it there and didn't answer. And at some point, someone wrote me on LinkedIn and was like, hey, we are reaching out via the platform. You put it in, I don't know, a year ago or something. And we would really like to acquire it. Let's have a chat. And they seemed very fitting, and they were motivated enough to reach out to me on LinkedIn. So they researched me and then reached out. So I had a talk with them, and they really seemed really fitting. They came from the same industry. They had clients before. They had an exit before. So they knew what they were doing, and they understood the potential. And I thought, okay, they are able to extract the value out of this. They will be. So I had a conversation with them, and it seemed very promising. From a negotiating perspective, yes, of course, they looked at other multiples, they looked at other companies, other exits, all that kind of stuff. I basically said, look, at some point it doesn't matter. Like, we can talk about valuations and everything, but at some point it will not be worth it to me to sell. I will simply keep it and try to grow it a little bit more and take the cash flow. But this is what I want to sell it for. This is my minimum, etc. So I was able to put my foot down because the alternative, the Butner, as I mentioned before, was good enough, and that is just keeping it.
So you literally told them in the negotiation, you told them the price that you sold it now for, which was almost $500,000, or was that a higher number that you told them?
No, they started lower. They wanted to pay 300K, something like this. I went, of course, a lot higher, like 600K, something like this. We negotiated, and at some point, I said, basically, we stop here. So this is, I will not go lower. And this was the 404K. I told them, we can do this there. I'm willing to do it, and I feel like a worthy trade at money that or an amount that I feel happy about, that I feel safe with for the next couple of years for my family. And I basically said, this is the stop. It doesn't matter if you think the worth is lower, then don't buy it. I'm happy to keep it. But of course, it's a negotiating thing for them as well. They understand better how much value they get out of it. This is an existing customer base and everything. And the code specifically, they have to decide it themselves. At some point, the market rate doesn't matter to me. And I know when you have to sell, these are terrible conversations to have, and someone else tries to undervalue you a lot. But at some point, if you have a Butner, which for me was keeping the company, it's simply, okay, I will not sell below that. It doesn't matter how many arguments you bring. And then they can decide if they want to do it or not.
How did you come up with, you personally, how did you come up with that figure? Because it could have been 50K higher or lower. How do you nail it down? This is what this thing is actually worth for me. Obviously, it's about multiples and so on, but it's easy to kind of, on the one hand side, you can go very analytical about it. You can look at, as they do in big private equity deals, look at multiples and so on, do comparables. But then there's also what this thing is worth to you, right? And sometimes maybe it's harder to judge that.
Yeah. It is not really a science, I think. You can do that. You can bring in external folks and everything, which I think is normal if you do large corporate deals and everything. But nobody wanted that complexity in it. So it was more of a feeling. And I felt 300K, it doesn't get me peace of mind for a long enough time. I always had in mind, like, I want peace of mind, like it can cover the cost of my family, comfortably.
300K, that's like only two
for at
proper
least 5
Porsche,
years.
and then it's gone.
Yeah, basically. No, but a family of 4 in Hamburg, in Germany. Yeah, I mean, let's say 100K. I don't really. I have to calculate up. So the cost of living, let's put it this way, for a family, you can put it at 5K. Might be a bit too high for some people, might be a bit too low for some people. But let's say you live in a good apartment, you have 2 kids, two grown people, you live comfortably, including, going to vacation every once in a while and things like that. 5K, 60K per year, that's net. So, and now you want to live for 5 years off of that, for example, right? This rough calculation. And I said, okay, 300K, I would not give it away for that. I would rather keep the cash flow and try to grow it a little bit more. 400K is better. 600K would be awesome. That would be like, I would go, I would do a big party for that kind of exit. And it's like even 400K, it's more money than I ever owned, ever. So 440K was something where it just felt like a win, and I said, okay, this is what I would do. It's not a science. It's just personal feeling, preference, something like this. There was no, if they would have offered 430, would I have taken it? Maybe. From a deal structure, you asked that. I did a mistake there. So an asset deal is something that is less stress for everyone involved, and they were not a German company. They are from Scandinavia, so an asset deal was also preferable for them. But an asset deal means the money comes in as revenue into they buy the basically the software and the different accounts and things like that. They buy the assets, but the company stays with me, and the purchase price flows in as revenue. That means it is taxed as revenue, so 30% or something. Better would be to sell the entire company. I have a holding above the company, and then it's just a few percentages, like 2%, 3% or something, and it flows into the holding company.
In a bit
that
more
would have
detail,
been financially,
because I'm not sure everybody
Mhm.
is following. So maybe let's unpack this, like the difference. And we don't need to be overly scientific about it, right? But let's just explain that again.
Yeah, okay. And it's obviously no legal advice or something like this. But in Germany, at least, it might be in many countries like this. So if you earn revenue or if you earn money yourself, like it goes to you personally, you pay income tax, right? Which in Germany is like, let's say 50%. If you have a company and the company gets revenue, you are taxed for that, right? If you do profits, you will have a tax on that, around 30%, right? The company pays 30% on gains, on profits. Now, if you have a holding company that just owns other businesses and sells them, the money goes to that holding company, and you can't do anything with that money. If you want it personally, you need to pay it out, and it's again income tax. If you want to do something with it, like you have a business and you want to use the money for operations, like invest in marketing or something like this, you need to put it in there. Then you pay it out to another business. So the holding company does that. It holds funds and things like that. So it's not taxed there, at least not a lot, until you use it somehow. So if you get a big chunk of money, especially in a large exit, like let's say 10 million, you want a holding company where the funds go to, because otherwise a lot of it goes to the government, or you get taxed on a lot of that. But you can't use it, right? What do you want to do with 10 million? You keep it and you invest in other businesses or things like this. So that's where a holding company comes in. The recommendation basically is if you do a company and you plan to make it a little bit bigger, do a holding company and you own that holding company, and the holding company owns your other businesses. So I have exactly that structure. I own a holding company, and that holding company owns all the businesses that I do. So whenever I sell one, it goes into the holding company and I can do something new with it, like a real estate company, or I invest in other businesses or whatever it is. Because I personally, privately, what should I do with 10 million or even 400K? So that is the concept or the principle. But I didn't do it this way. I offered the asset deal, and after I offered it, I understood the implications. I talked to my tax advisor and everything, but because I offered it already, I basically told them, look, it's a loss for me on a tax perspective, but I offered it and I will keep my word. So I will eat this loss as a learning opportunity, basically. The only thing I asked is, let's push the deal to 2024. So I have 1 year to do something with the money inside the company before it's taxed. But I ate this loss. How should I have done it previously? I should have told them, you want the company, you get the company. Then they have all the struggle with, tax advisor in Germany. They have to finish off the company, what's the English term for it?
Like wind it down.
Close it basically in Germany. So they have, wind it down. Thank you. They have all the bureaucracy of Germany to deal with. And if they then say, let's rather do an asset deal, then I would say, okay, but you have to pay 30% on top so I can cover taxes. This would have been the better thing that I would do next time, definitely. But I didn't. And I wanted to keep my word because I offered it. It was an expensive mistake, but it will not happen again for sure.
And then what are the next steps? Like, how does it work out? They send you this agreement, you sign it via DocuSign, and they wire you the money, or was there some kind of other steps involved?
Basically, so before that, they sign they write you a letter of intent. So they want to buy, we sign NDAs and things like that. And then there is a due diligence phase. So you give them access to whatever, Stripe, to your documentation, to your code and everything. And they check everything. If there are, if you have debt or if you do something fishy or whatever it is. So they check everything. They ask questions. They ask questions about the customers and all this kind of stuff. This is obviously a lot of work in large companies, like huge, crazy things, and some stuff comes up and then there is renegotiation and everything. But in this case, I mean, it was a very small business, so they checked it for a week. They asked a few questions. I answered everything. I understood where I need to maybe clean some stuff up, and then it was done. They were happy with it. Then the next step would have been send DocuSign. I sign it. They wire the money, and we're good to go. But they were a little bit nicer, and I really, really, really appreciated that. They said, no, we will not send you a DocuSign. We will come to Hamburg, and we will go have a very nice dinner and celebrate this a little bit, because it's awesome for us, and we hope it's awesome for you. And I'm someone who works a lot, and whenever I reach a milestone, I just blow past it. There's a milestone, I'm like, okay, yes, and I have already the next one in my head. Like, even before I reach it, I'm already looking at the one after that. So I never take the time to celebrate a little bit or look back. And they basically forced me to do that. They took me out to a very, very nice restaurant, one I would have never went to myself. It was a really, really nice evening. I really appreciated that. And we didn't talk about that deal a lot. We just talked about everything and their business and what they plan to do with it and everything. It was just a nice conversation between founders. And the next day, they sent me the DocuSign and wired the money. This was basically done in like half an hour or something like this. It arrived, and then it was said and done. And now, we just do a handover basically. Like, they do most of the things, but we put in that, I commit to a few hours per month if they have questions, or if they need some advice on some things, just so they are sure there is a proper handover. Which, again, it's not a lot of work for this kind of business, a very small business. It's obviously a lot of work. If I would sell Paket, I probably have to sign a deal where I stay with the company for a year or two or something like this for a proper handover, which I think is more
Yeah,
usual.
for sure. And even, I mean, for these huge deals, it's clear that it's not only about the price always, there's so many other factors involved. But what I noticed, I was also, I used Flipper, and there's 2 or 3 other websites where you can sell stuff. And now that we have a portfolio of YouTube channels and we're divesting of some of them. And during these negotiations, even during these negotiations where it's not about like huge sums of money, but it's around like 10K to 100K. And even there, stuff like this is involved, right? Like how long can you stay involved as a channel strategy manager? Or can we get like one monthly call, to discuss ABC, right? Or what about the team? I mean, for you, this was probably not as relevant because it was you and this other guy. But for a YouTube channel, then what about the editors? What about the designers? How do we package them in? Can you guarantee that they stay on for some time, which is difficult because these people mostly are freelancers, right? So if they don't like to work for you, they will just go off. So yeah, I guess that's also the beauty of the business, that you can play around with so many variables, and price is not the only one thing in this negotiation, which makes the negotiation more I would say pleasant, because it's not just you say 100K and they say 200K and then you need to meet somewhere in the middle, but you can add some of your services, you can make life easier for them and arrive at a nice agreement that's good for everyone.
I think that is a very important point, not only in business negotiations, but also in salary negotiations, that the money is like, there are more things that are valuable to you and the person you're negotiating with. And that could be a time perspective. So let's do business first. It could be closing the deal sooner. It could be how long do you have to stay on? Do you stay on with a salary? Do you get shares of the new venture that they do or of their company a little bit? Are you out completely? Do you get the money in tranches? Do you have to do an earn out, like even hit some KPIs before you get the full money or get a kicker or something like this? And even with your salary, you can negotiate on vacation time, on I don't know, if doing an 80% role, like 4 days a week, something like this. You can negotiate on who to report to, or if you get a team, or whatever is important to you. Equipment, headphones at work, home office, whatever it is. There are so many variables. Even training, external training, going to a conference once a year in like abroad or whatever it is. So don't focus on just money. There are so much more things that are important to you, and you should recognize them, and you should recognize what's important to them. And even if it's like, especially if it's easy for you to give them something, if you use it in a negotiation, it's a perfect way to get some leverage.
I'm wondering.
That's a beauty of a negotiation.
I'm wondering, Sumit,
Sorry,
because you are you're one of this this breed that has that is very industrious, right? So you like to work, you like to build projects, and typically what these people have in common is they have lots of ideas, they have too little time to execute. So of course the beauty is to pick.
True.
And that's the beauty, but that's also the difficult thing, to pick the few ideas that you think have the highest potential of success and the biggest potential of success. So do you have some more ideas for people listening here that say, I would like to actually build a side project, make some 5, 10, 15, 20K monthly on the side? Is there some ideas you can, as a charity work, give to the people?
I'm happy to. I also can share a few things that I think are important for idea finding in general, because I can drop ideas here, I will, but if you just take them and try it, the one thing is they have to, you have to have a vision, and a rough estimate that they can become successful. Obviously, you need to validate that as fast as possible. But also, it needs to be fun. You have to have a passion for it, because it's a 5-year, 10-year trajectory. If you don't like it, you will not make it through. And it's very hard to do. Yeah, it's a roller coaster of emotions, definitely. There are very, very tough days and stressful days. So if you're not passionate about it, it's very hard to stick to it. That is very important, and that's why also Paket, I have a lot of passion for it, but there is much more financial potential in Geoman, which I sold. Geoman was B2B. It was large enterprise, very high ticket, and low churn, and Paket is B2C, which is lots of customer support, people negotiating because of like 1 or 2 euros per month, while there you ask them for 15,000 euros and they just wire it. It's a completely different game, but you have enterprise sales there, which is a whole different game than B2C customer support. So pick your poison, right? There are different things there in these businesses, and if one is fun for you, then you should do it. And I picked Paket, for example, because there are so many awesome users, customers, a community that love it, that love what we do. I just love working in that environment with that team, with that community, even if it's not the highest return. It still has the potential to change my life. Right? A business has to do what, a few million in revenue. It doesn't need to be 100 million business to change my life. I don't need to change an investor's life. I don't have investors. I just do it myself. So that's enough, basically. It doesn't mean I don't aim high. It means it's already a success, even if it's not a 100 million company. And that was very important for me. Okay, back to the ideas. If you start something, doesn't matter what, you have one idea you're not sure, start. You will get into so many problematic areas where you think, why is there no better solution for this? That you are bombarded with ideas. When you start, you expose yourself to all of the problems that are there in the business world, and you will get more and more and more ideas. That is the important part. If you sit on the couch and scroll TikTok, you will not get business ideas. You need to do a business. You need to interact with people, with customers, with other founders, and the ideas will come. So just start something, and the ideas will come. There are a few things, like I pick ideas or I write ideas down because I'm interested in business models. I talk about founding companies. I talk about business models, product building, things like that. It just interests me. So sometimes I write down ideas just because they are a specific business model, and I would love to try this someday. Not because it's the biggest financial thing in the world. And there are a few things that are hugely challenging where I think if I had 100 million in the bank, I would start this or I would try this, because I think it's a big problem to solve and I would love to try it. But I don't.
Not yet.
I don't try it yet. I don't have the millions in the bank. Let's see. I don't think so. Okay, so now back to a few ideas. One is content sites in general. There are a lot of them. I would try to pick a niche that I know well. In my case, it's tech, maybe a framework that is not very well documented, or it could be, I don't know, hairstyles for dogs, whatever it is, a very niche site. Ideally, even a niche in the sense of geographically. So you do it in German, for example, right? You pick a niche, competition is low, ideally a lot of people use it, and there are some businesses that fulfill that niche, and you create a content site for it. Let's say the best tutorials for this and that, or the best content for a new game, for example, if there is not a lot of content already. And you become the de facto standard. If somebody researches anything on that topic, they come to your site. And you basically then, via affiliate commissions, sell that software you are talking about, or that game, or whatever it is. And in the beginning, you have to put in a lot of work, a lot of content, especially how it, like when it changes, but then it becomes passive, and you can expand into giving workshops about that software. Like there is this girl on TikTok, and she does millions with Excel tutorials, Microsoft Excel from TikTok. And she is like doing code, like video tutorials now, and sells this to corporations. She does millions with Excel, a software that exists since the 90s or something. and she just brought it in a different way to a new platform.
Man,
gives
if I
tips
would have
on
known
Excel
that when I
and
was
does so much money. So
building Monte
there's a
Carlo
lot to do.
simulations 10 years ago for my consulting company, that I could make millions with this on TikTok.
I mean, she puts in a little bit more work than just Excel, of course. The entertainment factor is huge, but the business behind is just insane. And I like, there are podcasts with her, and I like, she's a huge inspiration how she works, because she does like, okay, I do 1 month hustle, new videos, new ideas. I get into the zone. I do this, and then I chill on Bali for 3 months, and then back. You know, it's like she does this like hardcore grinding month or weeks, and then chill a little bit. It's really interesting how she built all of that up. And yeah, so a niche content site, tutorial content site, something like this.
I need to understand that,
try.
because
Then there is another thing.
like,
Yeah, sorry, go.
what
Yeah.
what I think when I think about that is the beauty in finding these super small niches that don't have any other content that is ranking on Google currently? And then is it even just about ranking on Google via SEO? Is this like an SEO game that you're describing? And thirdly, how does ChatGPT
In this case,
play into
definitely.
all of this? Because there have also been some updates on how stuff ranks online now with the advent of, everybody can write like hundreds of articles within seconds, essentially, right?
Yeah. So I would definitely utilize AI for this, especially if you're not a writer or if you don't like it. Then I would definitely utilize AI for this. It's definitely a content game. So you will, SEO game. You will get your traffic via Google on a content site. That is the entire business. So you will spend, your time with SEO research and writing articles for it, etc. But it will become a lot easier if you are in the niche yourself. Like, let's say, I don't know, random example, you play Diablo 4, for example. I mean, it's a huge game. There is a lot of content for it, but let's say you do German content for Diablo 4 and you have a specific website where you do this. People who play it in Germany might come to that, right? And again, if there is a lot of competition and you don't solve anything that they don't solve yet, I would maybe not touch it. I like to go into businesses where I solve a problem that is either not solved today, or I can add a lot more value than the current solutions. If you're just doing something that someone else does, you're not competing on product level, you're competing on marketing and budget. And if you do a side project, what you don't have is budget or time. So I would pick a niche where you solve a new problem, something that is not there yet, and a niche that you can expand outward. So as an example, Paket, I started with one bank in Germany, only German, no English version, one currency, and one asset class, stocks. That was it. And I supported only one bank. Like, who would launch a product like this? Like a financial product that supports one bank. But I said, this is the niche, and I only market to customers of that bank. Then I added the second bank, then the third bank. Then I added more currencies, then more asset classes, etc. Now we have crypto, cash, stocks, ETFs, funds, all that stuff. We will add gold and silver and things like that, precious metals in the future. This year, we support all of the currencies and all of the banks here, like 60 banks or something like this. And we are in Austria and Switzerland as well. So you expand out of your niche, but in the beginning you're there and you're the best solution there for these customers. And you learn. I mean, this is side project and bootstrapping stuff. This is not the VC game. You pick your small market where the people with the big bucks have, it's not worth it to them to go in there. So you're the best solution in that niche, and you slowly go out. It's a longer game, and a niche game and a profitable game. It's not a VC game where someone gives you a few millions and you dominate the world or something. You dominate a small world. So that's content or a content niche site. Then there is this thing, I would love to try it one day. It will not generate a lot, I think, but it's so fascinating to me what kind of businesses there are. There are people that they put cameras on, let's say, a lake, somewhere on a lake, and in front of the camera they have this box where there is food for ducks, for example. Then they do a live stream of that lake, And when someone donates like 10 euros, $10 on the Twitch stream, this thing opens for a second and puts food there, and the ducks come and are in the camera and eat the food. And they just have this running 24/7, and they do passive income. There are 3,000 people looking at this simultaneously, and I'm like, what the fuck? They just set this up once, and it's just running. And do this with different animals anywhere if you have like access to that and are allowed to do this there. But I think it's genius. It's just there are so many incredible niches that you can do, and I would love to try it one just for the challenge. But I live in the middle of the city, and it probably not the business that I'm interested in, but it's still very interesting. In Germany, believe it or not, we have to send faxes every now and then, especially if you deal with governments and big things. So I thought about a software as a service solution with an awesome API, like Stripe level quality for sending faxes. If you send an email to that service with a phone number or whatever, and that company takes that email, sends the fax. That's it. If there comes a fax back, we send it to you via email. So we abstract away the stupid fax stuff, and you can send emails, or via API you can even integrate it in your product, whatever it is. That was something that I thought about. Then automating the founder journey. So creating a company in Germany, it sucks. You have to go to the notary. You have to do getting the tax numbers and things from the government. You have to go into all kinds of registries, all of that stuff. Automate it as fast as possible. Stripe Atlas is a good example in the US, where you can basically found a company online, only digital. And I would like to abstract that away at some point for German founders. And in the beginning, I would do it manually. Like someone puts into a form that I create what they want to do, and I do it for them. And just tell them, you have to be there at this date, or have a call with this, or fill out this, or whatever it is. But I take this away from them, firstly as a service, and then I would automate as much as possible to create a platform where founders can start companies easily.
I know some
online,
hustlers,
digitally.
I think they do that in Germany even, it's a hustle, right? They start these companies, I think it's GmbHs or so, and because the process takes so long, they just start them, and then they sell them to anyone who needs them fast. So it's a bit of an time arbitrage business. Yep. Obviously, you're not going to become a millionaire with that, but they're making some good cash on the side with that.
But there's also a lot of expansion possible, because then you are suddenly a platform where founders go through and start the next startups. So you can refer great lawyers, you can refer great tax advisors, you can refer the next cloud storage solution, the payment provider that they use, blah, blah, blah. You do, and you go there with AWS and Stripe and tell them, look, give us some startup credits for the startups that start here. We take a little bit of affiliate commission for everyone that starts with you. That will generate a little bit, and especially if if there is I don't know how many founders you get through, but if you are getting 20 per month.
Isn't that also a service that Stripe offers, that you can start isn't that Stripe Atlas, right? Incorporate your startup in Delaware, so they do all of that for you. Yeah. That's probably also one of the rationales for them, right? They want to be in touch with these young companies because ultimately they will be great customers to them at some point.
Yeah, for Stripe, they do a great job with this. They want to appeal to the startups, so they own the next generation of the large enterprises. And they purchased indie hackers in the beginning, right? The website indiehackers.com. I think they sold it now again, but they had it for a long time because they just wanted to be the de facto standard for anyone who starts a company. And I think they achieved that. The people start with Stripe, or most at least, as a payment provider. That brings me to another idea. If you have on the web, you have Stripe's subscriptions, but then you also offer an app in the App Store where you have to use Apple in-app purchases. You do the same on Google. Suddenly you have 3 subscription providers. If you want to diversify costs or fees and negotiate a little bit, you might even implement multiple payment providers on the web. So you end up with 4 or 5 different payment providers. But if a customer does a subscription and they suddenly cancel it and go to a different platform, you need to have a layer on top of that who synchronizes the state of the customer. across all of these platforms. So let's say a customer that has a subscription with us on the Apple App Store, he should not be able to create a subscription on the web with Stripe. They already have a subscription. So you need to synchronize that kind of stuff. So a subscription service that manages the abstraction to all of these different players would be also a business idea. But this one is huge. Like, big startups need that, scale-ups, enterprises need that. You need to have sales skills for that, and you need to have a little bit of budget to start building this, because there is no MVP that you can make valuable that you can build in a month or something yourself. At least not that big. You might be able to do just 2 services and sync them. But it's a lot of work, and it has to work. It's a critical infrastructure thing. So that might be more of a VC case. But these are just a few ideas. And it's always mostly either things I saw that I thought inspiring, or problems that I have myself that I would love to pay someone
let's
to
say
solve it.
someone has a YouTube channel. Let's just say it's finance documentaries, right? Like, what business should you build on top of it
Sure.
to, get mega rich?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm not successful on YouTube or anything. So if you get millions of views, then the ad revenue will be pretty nice already. But the big bucks, I think, are in the business behind it. So finance YouTube channel means content for who? Like end customers, private people who want to better their
like
finances,
documentaries about, let's
professionals?
say guys like Steven Schwartzman or Bill Ackman, or what is Blackstone, and so on.
Oh yeah, okay. The YouTube channel I'm looking at right now. I see. Okay, great. So what business with documentaries? At some point, you're building an audience. Every YouTube channel is building an audience, and at some point, you give away something for free. In this case, it's entertainment and some knowledge. And at some point, you need to sell something. So either it's someone else's product via ads and product placements and things like that, or you sell your own product. And your own product needs to solve a solution that the people you are addressing, you are attracting with your content, are having, ideally in the same problem space that you are addressing. So if it's financial people or people interested in the financial industry, they might have a problem. Let's say their personal finances, their portfolios, or maybe business. Maybe they work even in finance. I don't know that much about your audience. Or they are business people themselves, and at some point you need to solve a problem for them. So what I would usually do if I do content and I attract an audience, I would, try to get in contact with them, try to talk to them, maybe create a community, things like that. And then there are so many things. Again, selling other people's product, doing a community, a paid community maybe. It all depends on who they are and what they do. But I would find out more about that, trying to find a problem to solve at the end of the day. And if you don't find anything, rank up the views and sell ads. Close the channel. At the end of the day, you have you have eyeballs, basically. You have attention and of people, and you can always monetize that. I'm no YouTube expert, but as far as I know, you have to have a very specific audience, and ideally a business audience where you can sell high ticket stuff to, that you can get away with, let's say, under millions of views, few 100K, maybe even under 100K, and still make millions in revenue. In this case, it has to be, I don't know, if you, let's say, CEOs watch what you talk about because you are a crazy successful business coach, and then you sell your coaching tickets for 15K per ticket. Then you can make millions, even if not a lot of people look it, but it's very high ticket.
100%.
Depends on
one
the
thing we
audience.
also do is we build YouTube channels for companies, or sometimes for individuals, people who are coaches
Nice.
or whatever. And for these people, sometimes a YouTube channel that gets, let's say, 500 or 1,000 views on average per video can be extremely profitable, right? If they have a offering on the back end that, let's say, that they sell for $5,000 per piece, and the videos are actually structured like an actual sales conversation almost would be structured, right? Then they are just multiplying themselves via YouTube and these assets that stay online forever. So in these cases, it can be quite profitable. In other cases, I'm going to be very honest, like if you do these documentary type of videos, and there's a big movement now with, lots of people starting these video essay channels, where you see like cool pictures and B-roll and someone is talking, telling you a story. If you want to do these right, the production cost is quite high, and the Google AdSense, you will make a bit of money with Google AdSense, but ultimately you're going to be dependent on sponsors to really make lots of money. And then you have times like right now, for example, there's very few companies willing to sponsor YouTubers currently. I mean, there are always, but it's a tough market right now. And that's an ugly situation to be in, right? You don't want to be dependent on a few sponsors giving you money, otherwise your channel runs at a loss. So the YouTube is kind of a difficult business.
An example I can share an example I can share of someone who he built a TikTok channel with 1.2 million followers or something, so they get a lot of attention, but the people they are attracting with this content, they are not willing to pay a lot for something. And if the model falls a little bit apart if they try to sell their own stuff, but they prove that they can grow an audience and they can grow a TikTok channel. So instead what they sell is to other companies. They sell social media consulting, basically. So they get a lot of money and they show it by their own channel. So it's a marketing channel for a totally different audience where they basically prove what they can do, but they don't sell anything to that audience. The audience itself is a proof that they can sell the services to other businesses. That is also something, right? So this is like, that's also a possibility that you don't sell to your own audience, but it's just a leverage for a different service that you sell.
Completely agree. Let's talk about 1 million ARR and bootstrapping that. So you are a big fan of bootstrapping. You have a couple of posts, I think on LinkedIn or Twitter, where you say, you like bootstrapping. You would, in many cases, it doesn't make sense to, take on VC money. I used to work in VC in Shanghai, and I have this one memory where I was with a bit of a mentor of mine. We were on a conference, and I was pretty young in the game, in the venture capital investing game. And we talked, and one thing this guy said that stuck with me was, all of these businesses that we're meeting here, I think most of the businesses that we have invested in or that we are engaging with as VC investors, we actually fucked up more businesses than we made successful. Because a lot of the businesses that we invest in, they get pressured into doing certain things that otherwise, if they, didn't have people in the back, investors with their own interest, they would grow, they would slowly become profitable, they would do their own thing, find their own niche. Instead, they try to, blow up and kind of conquer the world. And then obviously, power law, only very few of them actually achieve that, right? So then the question is, I think that could be true, like in terms of total numbers. Probably as a VC, you like make a couple of dozen companies mega big and successful, but then probably there's quite a lot of companies that just go to shits. Obviously, on the other hand, you help, in terms of dollars, you help a lot of market capitalization to be generated, right? So kind of you are creating some value
Yeah.
as a VC, but that's something that stuck with me from that conversation. So what are your thoughts on this whole, bootstrapping businesses?
Yeah, so disclaimer, I never built a company myself with external funding. So everything I've built was bootstrapped, and even if I had co-founders, it was bootstrapped. I was part of venture funded companies, of course, and I follow the industry closely and talk to a lot of founders. But yeah, so at the end of the day, you can think about it from many directions. And one part was go through in like a part of a city, where the industry is the old school industry, or a village, like small towns. If you drive through, you see these companies with huge buildings. You've never heard of them. They are like some local player, and you're like, how did they build this? Like 50 years ago, or 30 years ago, or 20 years ago, they are able to do this. They are able to, like, they probably make 10 million in revenue or something like this. Or 5 million in revenue, changed the life of the founder and their families. They don't have venture capital, of course not. Like none of these companies have. They might have taken debt because they needed capital to do, to buy machines, basically. But at the end of the day, they built it without venture capital. So I thought digitally, the burden, like the blockers are even lower. The hurdles are even lower. You can start with a laptop and internet access if you can program. There is no need to buy large machines or something like this. So that is the first part. Like, it's not really necessary to start a digital product or a digital business. So what is it necessary for? It's for scale up. But why do you need to scale up like this? In the beginning, I thought, okay, the return on you as a founder. Let's say you build a business that is 100 million, and you own, at the end of the day, you own 10% of it because you had to sell your stuff to investors. Then you make an exit for 100 million, you own 10%, you get 10 million. On the other hand, I could create a business that is worth 10 million by being able to do 5 million in revenue or something like this, maybe, or 6 million in revenue per year. I get a business that is worth 10 million and I own 100% of it. The outcome for me is the same if I sell it. It's exactly the same return. But what is more likely, to build a 10 million business or to build a 100 million business? And one is much more likely than the other. And even more importantly, even if you are able to build your bootstrap business to 100 million, it's already successful at 10. It might already be successful at 5. The venture case is either 100 million or it's out. It's nothing. Because you will not be able to return that. You will always grow faster. You will burn money all the time. You're not going into profitability, big or nothing. And that was not something I wanted. I wanted a business that can change my life. And I'm happy with a 5 million business. Like, I don't need more. I aim for more. That's fine. But I don't want the 100 million or nothing approach. So I thought for most founders, that would be the much better approach, because the business would be successful. It would be a success in whatever metric way, way sooner. And also I saw how founders are pushed out by their investors. Being it, like, even might be correct, might be not correct, but I could not make myself comfortable with the idea that I start a company, I bring other people in, I give it my all, 5 years, 10 years, I hustle my ass off to bring return to them and to me. And then I get pushed out because they just can, and they can, decide the fate. And if there is something in the market or they have to rebalance their portfolio, I have to, do as they wish just because the wind changed a little bit. I don't have to do the best for the company. I have to do the best for them. I didn't want that. Like, if Mark Zuckerberg is a good example of keeping leverage, even getting investors on, he can still decide whatever he wants. That he did great. I think in this regard. But again, I can do a small business and I can change my world. I don't have to change a VC's world or whatever. So that was the big rationale for me, because it's not necessary and it doesn't change the outcome at the end of the day, but it's a lot more stressful and less likely to be a success. So when I'm able to program myself and I'm willing to learn what I can't do, I can start myself. And even if there is a barrier at some point, let's say internationalization, scale up, whatever it is, or we have this big vision, we want to go there now. I bootstrapped 4 years, reached 1 million in ARR. I proved the business model works. I proved it's profitable. I proved that there is a market for it. I proved that we can deliver on it, etc., etc. I'm in a much better position now than with a PowerPoint deck before I even build anything. So the further you can go bootstrapped, even if it's not the whole journey, but the further you can go alone or just your founder team without investors, the better you are basically at the negotiating table then.
One
with
nuance
VCs
I
at some
want to
point.
add to this discussion of like when you raise VC, it's either 0 or 100. For people listening who are not aware of this, but oftentimes if you are a founder and you're VC backed, you are allowed to take some chips off the table after, let's say, 1, 2, 3 years, something like that, in secondary sales, right? So you might be able to like take some chips off the table. Usually, let's say that's like 2 million, 3 million, something like that. They are not going to allow you to like have a 20 million exit or something like that because they want you to stay motivated, right? But usually a VC, if you're in the right position, they will allow you to take some chips off the table simply because they also want to relieve, some of the pressure from the founder. At the same time, they want to keep you motivated. Like you're not going to have the mega exit because then why should you even still work hard, right? That's some nuance, but I completely agree with what you said about, when you go to these industrial areas, and you see these companies, that is literally, like for me, that's the dream. Like owning one of these, in Germany we call it Mittelstand, right? These SMEs, a family-owned business, fully private, so you take no shits from anyone, right? You have your customers, you had them for probably hundreds of years, and you're wildly profitable, and you're just printing cash, and you're not, you don't have any investors or, stakeholders that are shitting on you. I think that is much more desirable than building this massive company where you own like 0.1% and you have, hundreds of stakeholders who want something from you.
Yeah, I agree. And to your nuance, I agree with this, and I think it's a good thing. For example, people told me also I need to take some chips off the table. That's what will, like, to get some financial stability in my private life and be able to, go more calmly through rough patches in the business journey. Also, one thing where the Geoman exit is helping me, of course, right? Because I now have a buffer without taking any chips off the table with Paket. But I also think the fact that other people decide this for me, it's the same as being employed again, just with a different title. Like if they own 60-70% of the business and I'm basically the employed CEO with a share package, I can be employed again. It's also fine. Yeah, there might be a higher return, but I didn't start a business to be employed again. I started a business to prove to myself and see if I'm able to do this, to create this. And I also want the return of it. I give shares to my employees, of course. I want everyone who works with me to get a return on that, not only salary, but also if in case we sell. But it also should be just a nice cash flowing business that is awesome to own. There might be an exit in the future. There might even be a time when we raise money. I don't know. But what I want to do is an awesome business to keep, a profitable business that has nice cash flow, that changes my life, that creates a good life for my employees, that creates awesome value for my customers. That is awesome to own. And if you have a business like this, it's also, it will be awesome to sell because everyone would be happy to own a business like this. So I only focus on building a business like this, and the rest happens if it happens. If it doesn't, again, I'm creating my Batna, my alternative. I want to keep it. I don't want to get into a position where I have to sell or something like this. So in this case, I'm maybe a little bit more risk averse than VC founders or founders who are backed by VC, maybe. But I'm okay with that. And I'm still shooting high. It just takes a little bit longer because I have to generate revenue first because before I can hire the first person and things like that. So it just takes a little bit longer. but it's much more sustainable.
So one
in
question
my opinion.
definitely is still open. You bootstrapped essentially a side hustle to now 1 million ARR. How?
One step at a time. One step at a time. So in the beginning, I wasn't sure if people are willing to pay for this kind of tool. It was the first
Maybe
of
also
its kind
explain
here
what it
in
is, like,
Germany, and I had a
what you guys
problem
do.
myself. Yeah, so sure. So sorry, yeah. Parquet is a portfolio tracking tool. So I started investing into stocks and ETFs with different brokerages, and I wanted basically an overview of my net worth, right? And this includes brokerage accounts, cash, crypto, whatever it is. And I want to be motivated. I want also with investments, I look more for dividends because I like the cash flow, and I want to see like the charts go up from left bottom to top right from a net worth perspective and from dividend income perspective. So I'm a person who tracks stuff too, especially on long-term goals. I think this is very motivating. Doesn't matter if it's gym or weight or finances, tracking
What's
will
your weight
motivate
now?
and keep you under control. So I weigh
That's
around
very
100
good, man.
kilos, 103.
There is this narrative. There's this narrative.
Maybe I'm overweight.
And I don't know where it came from, but and it must be true that if you are below 3 digits kilogram of body weight as a man, you're not really a real man. So it's good you're a real man.
Yeah, okay. I try to get below 3 digits, but you just motivated to stay up.
No,
I will
just-
get my burger later.
Just try, just
That's
stay up
good.
there.
Good. Thank you.
Keep the gains.
Yeah, definitely. Gym time tomorrow again. Yeah, so tracking all of that is very motivating, and it gives you a compass where to go, and it shows you a little bit where, you might have risk or something like this. So I built this for myself, and then as fast as possible, I try to validate if people are signing up for it, using it, enjoying it, giving me feedback, and then validating if they pay for it. So I added a paid plan as soon as possible. Like, it was so minimal and solved such a small problem. But if I find one person to pay for it, I earned my first euro on the internet just by sitting there and coding. Then maybe the second person, the third person, whatever. Then there were like 50 people paying for it. I was okay, maybe there is something in there. And I had all of these like steps that I tried to validate. Do people sign up? Am I able to attract people to it? Like doing marketing, basically. Am I able, like, do they pay for it? Are they willing to? And when, like, how long do they use it? And I continued, like, I talked to customers all the time, try to understand how they use it, why they don't use it, why they churn, like stop paying and things like that. Very, very
Let me
close
just dig
to
in
the customers.
for one quick second. So
and then, yeah.
okay, you need to obviously develop some kind of MVP. Either you're able to do that yourself, it's great, it's the best option,
Yeah.
or maybe you can get someone on board to do that for you. Might work too. If it doesn't work, you're fucked. Okay, but let's assume you built this thing, and now you wanna. I'm interested. You don't seem like the kind of guy who's like the marketing genius. You also don't have like millions of people following online, even though you have a nice little following. So how did you like? What do you? Are there some sites to test that where people who developed something like Product Hunt or whatever? Like how did you get that these initial people on there?
Yeah, the first customers. That is a great question, and a lot of people struggle with this. So back then I had no audience. I started documenting the journey of building this, and that's when I grew my indie hacker side hustle bootstrapper following a little bit. So back then I had no following. And by the way, the launch, I live streamed it on YouTube. So the video is still there in English, how I launched. So exactly what I did. I did it live with all the feedback, crushing feedback and good feedback. It's all there. But yeah, so what? Yeah, okay, nice. That so what I did was, you have to be not only able to build the product, or your co-founder or whoever, it doesn't matter. Someone has to build the product if it's a digital product, of course. But you also have to be able to market it. It's half the battle, half, not like 10%. It's half. So part of the validation is, can I find people for it? So I thought about, okay, I try to attract people, and I told you in the beginning, one bank, one currency, only stocks. So where do I find these people? I need to find customers of that bank. And that bank had a forum. So I registered there. I started to talk there a little bit. Then I went into other forums where customers of that bank hang out with, in general, other retail investors and discuss. So there were 3 sites, a stock forum, the forum of the bank, and a subreddit, a German subreddit for finances. And I didn't went there and said, look, I have a product to sell. I said, I'm an investor. I'm investing myself. I have a problem, and I built this tool to solve my own problem. I want to show it to you and ask you what you think. So I just asked for feedback. First people signed up, of course. They want to test it. There was nothing to sell. It was for free, of course. I got lots of feedback. People thought it was interesting. People DM'd me. Influencers DM'd me. Hey, can you do this? Can you do that? So then it started a little bit word of mouth. And I always commented there, hey, I added this. I fixed this bug. Here's a new feature. And I commented in there. And I was part of that community and added value. And at some point I thought, okay, let's do this a little bit better. I will put a pro plan in. And then, of course, some people complain. For some people, it's worth it. Then the forums kick you out because they say, now you do advertising. Now it's a paid product. You do advertise now. But hopefully you have already, a few followers on your social media or whatever it is. And then you just start doing the standard marketing stuff. I had built something in that helped me with marketing. I built in that people could share portfolios. So they could say it's public. And if they then sent a link to someone, everyone could see it. So influencers started using it. That was also the intention behind it. Influencers started using it when they wanted to show people the investments, like all these finance channels on Instagram and TikTok and wherever. And they put in their portfolios and showed it. And then people were asking them, hey, what tool do you use? And then I told them, look, here's an affiliate deal. How about you send people my way and you get a little bit of commission? So basically it was influencer marketing at the end of the day, in the beginning especially. Then at some point we added SEO. We added our own YouTube channel. We started our own social media companies when I was able to afford the people for it. And I myself, with the whole open startup thing where I talked about it a lot, that was also a little bit of marketing. It attracted especially employees at some point. So everyone who works with the company started following me at some point. And but also some customers. But that also, I only needed like 500 customers to cover costs, and that's absolutely doable. There are millions out here in Germany that invest in stocks, and I only need to find 500. Then at some point I need to, find the next 1,000 or something like this. It's always doable if you do one step at a time, one little step at a time.
Because
it takes long,
how do you earn money? Like, let's break that down. You said 500 people, 1 million ARR. How is that composed? How do you actually make money?
So basically, we can do rough numbers. It's 10 euros a month as a subscription. We have 12,000 customers, paying customers. So that's 1.2 million euros in annual recurring revenue. It's not exactly that. It's a little bit lower because we have people on an older plan with a cheaper model. There are discounts and things like that. But these are the rough numbers. It's 10 euros a month for the most popular plan. We also have a more expensive version. There also is a business version with obviously higher tickets and things like this. But the main revenue comes from B2C right now.
And what does the cost side look like?
Customers. Always bad, I'd say. So we are profitable, of course, but the highest items obviously are employees, data. In the finance world, data is very expensive, and then infrastructure.
What is data, for example? I mean, employees, I think, make sense for everyone, right? You need to pay people who work for you. But what about data?
You track your portfolio, so we need the underlying data. That means all the stock information, the stock prices, the historical stock data, the dividend stuff, the events that they do, like the capital measures, like a split, for example, the Tesla split, Apple split, things like this. We need the announced dividends. We need the ETF breakdowns, what actual holdings are inside the ETFs. Like all this kind of stuff. There's so much data to purchase, news and things like this.
Okay.
Very expensive.
That's super interesting, especially for someone who's who's not into it, obviously you need to pay for all of the data, and there's, companies making lots of money with that. Now,
Oh, yes.
to kind of wrap it up slowly, there's one interesting thing that might make you cooler than Peter Levels, and that is that this is actually pretty megalomaniacal. I mean, this platform, I would say, and you said in a recent LinkedIn post, I think, that you want to turn this into a proper platform. You want to turn it into the leading wealth management tool. It's quite a big vision. That's not like a, small website that will, stay at 50K monthly revenue or whatever, but this thing can actually turn into something pretty massive. So, first of all, why even, like, was that just something that grew naturally and you're like, okay, I'm sitting on a rocket ship, so why not just ride it? Because it's also, I mean, you now have employees, right? So you have more responsibility, people to take care of. So was that like a conscious thing? And then obviously tell us a bit about what's the big vision behind that.
Yeah, good question. So at the end of the day, I'm not someone who wants to overpromise ever. So that's why I also don't like to go into an investor pitch and tell them we will conquer the world. I hate that because I just don't know it, and they know also that I can't know it. It's okay, we will try this, but it's completely random. So what I rather do is over-deliver, under-promise and over-deliver always. So I never, in the 4 years that I'm doing this now, talked about the big picture. I have something in mind and I have a plan and a hope, but I'm not putting this on the website. I only put stuff on the website or talk about this publicly, what I have already or know will soon be there, right? So to close proximity to where we are currently, usually. But things are changing. Others are not, like, a lot of competitors arose in that time. And because I'm very open with revenue and everything, obviously there were a lot of copycats. Like, now there are so many tools. We were the first of its kind, but now there are many, even VC-backed competitors. And new ones coming in that have basically advantages over us, being it marketing reach, being it funding, both, whatever it is, right? There is competition coming, and people come for us because we are, by at least some metrics that I can see, the biggest one, right? The people that everyone is compared to. Sorry, the tool that everyone is compared to. So if someone new enters the market, they are compared to us, at least from what I can see. That means if I don't publicly talk about the big thing that we want to build, people will use that as leverage against me in PR and say, this is the small tool, they just focus on this. We are building this one. And we are too big now to ignore this kind of stuff. The press is talking about us. When new people launch, they do announcements, they say, new competition for Parquet, things like this. So we are in the conversation always. And I have to be in there and take a stand. This just changed now. So in this case, I didn't give a 5-year roadmap or something. I still try to have a close proximity, but to where we are now. But I wanted to give a glimpse into our ambition, and that was that we will also serve B2B customers, which we are doing today, but we didn't do it very publicly. So we will serve them as well, in addition to our focus on B2C, and we will open up our basically platform with APIs to give external developers a way to connect to our data, if our customers agree, obviously, and build additional value on top of it. Things that we don't go into, like stock analysis or withdraw tax, like what you pay with dividends, to get that back, or the direct connection to banks, push and pull, or to other assets like watches and Porsche and real estate and all this kind of stuff. So external developers can build integrations. And I think this is a very, very amazing thing that adds value to a lot of people, not only to our customers, but also to our external developers. and it can be a great tool for the financial world in general here in DACH. And I want to build it, and I think we can do it. We are also very close to it, and we can do it without funding. We can do it ourselves. So I was comfortable to talk about it, even if it's a little bit like going out of my comfort zone a little bit and talk about the future a little bit more than I do usually. But I felt it was needed because the competition is rising, and they have, you know, a lot of ways to compete with us, where we just have to defend our spot and be a little bit more outspoken about where we want to go.
Makes
Does
a
that
lot
make
of
sense?
sense to me. I think it's really nice to see that, you know, you always adjust your ambition level upwards. So I think you probably have been a completely different
That's true.
person when like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But you constantly kind of test the limits, and then you push the limits, and you notice, holy shit, it actually works, right? And there's some people who then at some point get content, and they're like, okay, who would have in your situation now maybe said, let's just, you know, keep it small, or let me sell this thing and I'm going to be the employed CEO and I have my money and that's it, you know? But you obviously keep pushing, and I think that's pretty cool. That's also, I mean, that's something that probably unites both of us, whereas, but for me it was different, where since I'm very young, I have been a little bit, you know, like thinking much bigger than most of my peers. But I think we're, you know, probably the older we get, when we're both 80, we'll be pretty similar, you know, because exactly.
We do this again here when we are 80. Podcast again and look back. But no, it's yeah, you're completely right. I think I mean, 1 million ARR is a fantastic milestone, but I'm already, since a few months, I'm looking at how can I build a business that goes into 10 million, into 10 million revenue, a number that I would never have thought about when I started. I mean, I started this to make like 1,000 euros on the side or 2,000 euros on the side or whatever per month. And now we are here, and there is a much bigger ambition now, obviously. And like, what value do I have to add to the market? What value do I have to add to customers to be able to reach that? How many employees do I need? Like what? And this is super interesting to me. I love to learn that. It's fucking fun. I apologize if I say it like this, but I love building things. And even if I sell it one day, or even if it goes to shit and I lose everything, I will start the next thing. I just love building this kind of stuff, and it's really, really fun. And at some point, I would love to go for the really big one, like a really big shot, maybe with VC money, try to do 100 million, not because I need the money or I want the return or something like this, but because it's fun to build a business like this. And I would love to see the challenge, you know, to feel what it's like to have 1,000 employees or something like this. I can't even imagine that.
It's a bit like a computer game, right?
Yeah,
It's like, it's the
it's just
next
interesting to
level
me.
of difficulty that
exactly.
you also want to master. And then the few people who actually master it, they get a lot of, we're all drawn to them because it's fascinating to see, right? It's like you see these people, it's same as when you watch someone playing an actual computer game at an extremely high level, and you're like, holy shit, there's probably just 10 other people on this globe who are able to play this game at such a level. And it's kind of the same with business or life or sports or anything else that fascinates humans.
Yeah. I would love to find the limit, you know. I always like because I kind of had to prove myself always, as we talked about in the beginning with like my career and stuff. I'm always like, if somebody tells me you can't do it, I always say, okay, then I will do it. You know, I'm always motivated by
you're like
people
Arnold
underestimating
Schwarzenegger.
me or something like this. It's weird, but it just is the case. I don't know. Not like him. He's the Champions League in his game, but I'm willing to test the idea. You know, and until I decide I'm not able to do it, this is too hard. Like there is something here that I can't do, either my brain or my people skills or the stress level or whatever it is. But I'm not there yet. So I will go further until I find that limit, and we will see how far it goes. But this is the good part. at some point, my family is safe. There is enough, I don't know, cash flow, something like this. So I can take more risks and do more ambitious things. In your first venture, as you said, you have a lot of financial pressure. You take no salary yourself. You put everything into the business. It creates a lot of pressure. But my second daughter will be born in a month and 4 weeks. And then I want them to be
Last
safe.
question, is it helpful to be shredded and big as a CEO of a, wealth management platform?
Let's put it this way, it doesn't hurt. I'm not shredded, but let's put it this way. If you have a fit body, in the beginning when I was at Stripe and Paket, I treated my body like crap. I ate crap. I didn't do any sports, nothing. Horrible. If you look in the videos if you look at me in the videos from back then, you can see the difference. But a healthy body can tolerate that stress and perform on a high level every day much, much better than if you treat your body poorly. So doing sports regularly, something that is new to me, just since 2 years or something, I'm doing this every day. I would recommend every founder to do it. Make it a routine and a priority. I will not get onto my desk here before I was at the gym every day. And I can definitely recommend it. When you have your own company, you have the flexibility to do this in your day. And I recommend you do it some way or another. You need the balance, and if that works, you can.
Mens sana in corpore sano. And with that, Sumit, any last words? If someone wants to learn more about you, where should they go? Or anything else that you want to close this with?
Okay, so if you want to follow my journey a little bit, I'm talking about this kind of stuff, side hustle and bootstrapping and founding companies and building products, mostly on Twitter, at Tweets of Sumit, and in my podcast, Minimal Empires, but that one is German. So only if you are able to speak or understand German, then happy to have you. Other than that, if you are trying to build a company or a business on the side or something like this, I hope I added a little bit of inspiration to your journey. But the important part that I want to, if you want to take one thing away, just start. Start, even if you fail. Start, try, learn. You will not get anywhere if you don't take the first step. So I wish you all the best.
I think this was a very nice podcast, man. Eine Stunde 50, wir haben lange geredet, aber viele gute Insights.
Danke, Kevin. Ja, war richtig cool. Und du hast richtig viel vorher auch gehört, ne? Hat mich überrascht. Mega nice.